Welcome to Big Life Weekly Series, where we empower high achievers to break free from limits, unlock their natural potential, and live a big life. I'm your host, Robert Acosta, and each week we will explore the strategies, mindsets, and tools you need to thrive, not just in your professional career, but in every aspect of your life. Whether you're a leader looking for a better balanced life, an entrepreneur aiming for sustainable success, or someone ready to take the next step toward your best self, this podcast is your space to grow, reflect, and take action. Let's dive into today's episode. Hello, I'm Robert Acosta. I'm with Taylor Thomas from Thomas Endurance Coaching in Montana, USA. Welcome, Taylor.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. So let's get started right away to showcase your business. So, Taylor, can you give us a 90-second overview of what your business does and why you got into it?
A few different ventures. I guess I'll start with an overarching theme. I've been an entrepreneur my entire life. I started my first business when I was 20 years old and have been a serial entrepreneur ever since, which I always like to joke makes me largely unemployable. So I'm kind of stuck in this now. But Thomas Endurance Coaching, or TEC, was started from really my belief in what the physical pursuits that we might like to engage in, whether that's running or cycling or climbing a mountain or just getting out for a walk. I believe in the value of the commitment required and the things that we learn when we engage in a consistent physical practice. And so I wanted to make sure or do what I could to make that accessible to everyone. And so that company has been around for about 15 years. We've worked with tens of thousands of athletes in over 36 different countries. And we also have an accelerator program that is specific for coaches in that industry. So that's another passion of mine, is helping entrepreneurs in the health and wellness space connect in a meaningful way with their clients so that we can make the impact in those clients' lives. So to answer your question, it really is based around impact. I believe in the coach-athlete relationship. I believe in, again, what that consistent physical practice can provide to our lives over and above just fitness or health. I think that there is a tremendous amount of opportunity there when we engage in that space. And I want to make that accessible to everyone. And I want to help coaches build and scale so that they can make a larger impact on people's lives as well.
That's amazing. So I guess you're an athlete yourself, right?
I am, yeah. I've gone through lots of different iterations as an athlete. I got my start as a runner. I was a professional cyclist for a number of years and now have gone on and, just general health and wellness and trying to still set goals for myself, but certainly focused on longevity and just, exercise through the lens of helping me feel good and helping me show up really in my work in a way that's in alignment with my goals for myself. That's a critical piece for me. I know if that's a missing component, I can see it impacted in other areas of my life, my relationship with my family, my relationship with those that I work with. And so keeping that piece consistent is now has overreaching and overarching benefits, again, over and above just the fitness piece.
Yeah, I definitely understand what you're saying. Being an athlete myself, I know the benefits and not only physical but mental benefits of having that discipline embedded into your life, into the whole things that you do in your life. So I think it's easy to answer the next question, but what do you enjoy most about your work in the coaching business?
I mean, for me, it always comes back to relationships. I want to build relationships with people so that they can accomplish their mission and carry out their vision in the world. I see my role largely as a support mechanism. I see my role as an opportunity to flatten the learning curve for people. Like I said, I've been an entrepreneur my entire life, and I've made a lot of mistakes. And one of those mistakes was to try to do a lot of that work alone, and without mentorship and without support. And so really most of the spaces that I'm engaged in are built around that singular principle of helping people by providing a trusted relationship and support mechanisms so that they can show up in alignment with the life that they want to live. Whether that's building a business, whether that's leading a team, whether that's aligning with a career path that's appropriate and best for them. I want to be the person that helps to, again, flatten that learning curve and give them the confidence they need to run headlong at their goals, and really accomplish their dreams.
Yeah, well, I know you have a business, but at the same time, you work with people in your business, and at the end, businesses are people. Otherwise, there's no business. So, how do you define success in the work you do?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's changed a lot over the years, and I think I see that as a good thing. I think I've gained a lot more clarity around what success looks like for me, and when I was early in business, it purely based on revenue, and my definition of success is more nuanced now. While businesses need to make money, and there's people that I'm responsible to, and we have a team of individuals and so on. There is an impact that I'm much more focused on, and so I think to your question, success for me is defined by aligning myself with people that I know that I can support in a way that allows them to accomplish things that they otherwise wouldn't have been able to accomplish without me in their life, or without the businesses that I'm a part of, or the services that I'm able to provide in their life. And so, when I look at, here we are at the kind of relatively early onset of the new year, when I think back and reflect and set goals for this year, that really is a very central tenet, is were we successful or not? And if I can answer that question, if the answer is yes, then it really is defined by, how many people did we support so that they're in a place now where they otherwise wouldn't have been able to be without what we provide, or without a relationship with me or anyone that I'm involved with. So, I try to stay focused on that. And then ultimately that has a ripple effect that does influence the other metrics, other aspects of success, be that growth, ROI, revenue, right, so on and so forth. I try to stay rooted in the people aspect of things, and then I see it time and time again that inevitably shows up in these other metrics, right? KPIs, however we want to talk about that. So,
but not necessarily the other way around, right? If you focus on the revenue and the profit, not necessarily you get the people it change their lives or transform their lives in the way they want, right? So
100%. Yeah, I think that equation often in business is it's flipped. We drive it at the metrics, and we drive at revenue, and we drive at trying to move these things in our business, and we forget that people are the core tenet, right? Without people, be that on the client side or on the team side, that's the piece. That's what we have to pour into. That's what we're working to affect some change with. And so I try to stay rooted in that, and I do. It works out every time, and to your point, when I lose sight of that, or I get a little antsy, or I focus on the end goal instead of the process, inevitably it doesn't work out as well. I get off course, and things don't, it's not as fulfilling. I don't hire the right people. I don't attract the right clients. It happens every time.
Yeah, you have to have a lot of patience, otherwise you can derail your purpose. And yeah, I understand. So I'm just curious, what is the biggest problem or challenge that you see in your industry, in the coaching industry nowadays, and how you're solving that for yourself, your clients, and any referral partners are working with you?
It's a great question. I think one of the One of the biggest challenges, and this is specific to the health and wellness space, is there is still a disbelief. And this is a broad stroke, of course, but I see this every day. There is still a fundamental disbelief in service providers in that space and their belief in themselves that is a legitimate career that can provide the same financial opportunities that other careers have. And so what I mean by that is there is a deficit in terms of how service providers in that space think about themselves and the work that they're doing, the services they're providing, and they undervalue themselves, right? They think that people aren't willing to pay maybe a higher rate, or that if they are, that it's not worth that, or that, they're passionate about it, but it's never going to make the money that they want, right? It's always going to be a hobby. It's always going to be a passion project. And I'd say if there's one thing that I'm very, very committed to solving in terms of the narrative in that particular space, it is exactly that, is that I know for a fact that business owners in that space deserve and have every opportunity for those pursuits to be equally as rewarding as any other career path. And I believe that should be that should be our baseline, right? If you pour as much passion and heart and expertise into the work that you do, as we do in health and wellness, you should be compensated, and you should be able to build a life that you're excited about. You should be able to make money that supports the life that you want to lead. And so that is the narrative that I'm very, very committed to changing, because I see it every day. The people that I work with on the coaching side, again, it's passion, there's energy, there's expertise. These are incredible people, and they deserve to be able to recognize that their value is very, very high, and that they can build a business and work with the clients that they want that actually yields results, and so.
Yeah, I understand. For the industry, it has to be a floor that at least is equivalent to the minimum value that everyone provides just by being a coach and providing the basic services. But even that has a value. So everything else can be up, as you say. If you add more value, well, you are compensated more, but not less. Don't diminish, because the whole industry is going to suffer when someone within the industry is undervaluing their service, and it's just a mental thing, right? It's just the way they think. Maybe it's about their self-image, or the self-image, yes, of them, that say, well, maybe I'm not worth it. So yes, having that floor, I think it's very important. Otherwise, the whole industry is going to suffer, right? So.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, my thoughts exactly. I believe that, as the saying goes, a rising tide raises all ships. And I think when we have everyone in the industry working to elevate themselves and the value that they provide, it brings everyone up, right? And so I don't see it as a competitive marketplace. I see it as a supportive and collaborative marketplace, because if there's someone else out there doing great work in alignment with their value and building a business that is impactful and making an impact in their clients' lives, that helps me, right? That changes the narrative one person at a time so that everybody is elevated. And yeah, absolutely. That floor needs to be higher. There is a baseline that we have not reached yet. The fact of the matter is that most full-time coaches do not make enough to support themselves. The average is most full-time coaches, the median is $37,000 a year. Well, I don't know if you looked at what it takes to survive recently, but it's not $37,000 a year. It's more than that, a lot more than that. And most, over 90% of coaches don't make it past the first 2 years. It's because they don't make enough, right?
Yeah.
It's not giving back to them. They pour in and pour in, and it doesn't support them. And so they leave and they go get another job, or they go. So again, that's the narrative. Those are the pieces that I'm committed to changing, because I know that it's possible. I see it every single day, be it in my own work or, the work that I do with others.
Yeah, I think that's very, very important. So it's still, there are going to be people that they don't value that and they don't willing to pay. But yeah, having said that, who do you say is your ideal client, and what significant outcomes can they expect when working with you?
Yeah, there's been a shift. It's actually a good question, because I've been through kind of several iterations of who I think about I am working to make an impact on or with. When I first started in this space and founded TEC, it was, for me personally, it was athlete focused. I started a coaching company. I was coming from a professional cycling background. I was very committed to working with athletes and really helping them, solve these own problems in their life, reach their full potential. And then over the years, again, for me personally, what I've recognized is that my ideal client are the coaches. So I describe it as, happy coach, happy client, right? So I actually have taken now kind of a step up. I'm like, the way that I can make the most impact in this space is by helping coaches. And then that gets disseminated down to clients or athletes. Right. And so my ideal client, the people that I'm dedicated and committed to working with, are, again, it's service providers, it's, early stage businesses and entrepreneurs in the health and wellness space who might feel stuck in the narrative that we've just outlined, right? How do I attract my right client? How do I build a service that's in alignment with my value proposition? How do I scale that company? How do I make these things and get out of the way of some of these narratives that are so pervasive in the industry? And so those are the individuals that I want to work with, and that I actively try to attract. And I do that from a place of value. I believe that I just want to put value out in the world, right? Whether it's a newsletter, whether it's a social media post, whether it's podcasts, whether it's, I'm here to add value. And that if any point in that process of an individual engaging with me, if I can help, I'm here to do so. But ultimately, I believe in leading with value, and that's my baseline.
Yeah, it makes completely sense. So how nowadays more people are actively seeking solutions to achieve better outcomes. So what makes you unique in the way you help them achieve those outcomes?
I think it's a couple things, again, specific to the individuals that I'm focused on working with, which is on the coach and entrepreneur side, is one, I've done it before, right? And so largely what I help coaches do is flatten the learning curve based on my own failures. I've spent over 20 years trying to perfect the art of building revenue producing and scalable coaching companies. I now currently am actively involved in 2 of them, and take on a leadership role in those organizations. And so I think that's the first piece. And I say that to just highlight, again, it's important for me to be able to show up in a way that flattens the learning curve. Ultimately, entrepreneurship is very, very hard. Building a business is very, very challenging. And there's lots of moving pieces, and there's lots of highs, and there's tons of lows. And so building a relationship with someone to help smooth that process out and help them know for certain that they have access to resources and relationships and tools that are going to expedite the time to success and also limit the low points, or mitigate those lows, and help them go up and out. And I'd say the other piece is one of the things that I'm very focused on, specific to my work with coaches, is really helping coaches see themselves as entrepreneurs and business owners. I think that there is a deficit there, and I recognize this in myself. I started a coaching company. I had a company before that. My first company, I co-founded a technology company, and that's a whole nother story, but I started TEC because I was passionate about it. I didn't start it necessarily because I thought I was good at business, or I thought that I could make some great impact in the space. I did it because I believed in what I was doing. And I highlight that because I actually think that that is a strength of this industry that we're talking about. You have people that start things purely from passion, which is not really the case in most other industries, right? You start them because you recognize a gap in the marketplace. You recognize, some opportunity that doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. Coaches start businesses because they care, which is amazing. However, again, entrepreneurship is a wild adventure, and it requires a lot of skills that coaches don't possess. And so one of the things that I do is help those individuals see themselves as entrepreneurs and build the skills necessary to run a business, right? So how do we combine passion and tactics? And that's the key to success, in my opinion, is let's take that passion, let's develop it, let's build a brand around it, but then let's also make sure that the pieces are in place and the individual has the skill sets required to continue to build that business. And that's something that's not really represented in this space. We talk a lot about the passion. We talk a lot about what I call the prescriptive aspect, right? I'm going to give you workouts. I'm going to give you mental performance, some breath work, nutrition guidance, whatever. That's the end result. Right. We talk a lot about that. What we don't do is support that individual behind the scenes on how to actually package that in a way that builds a sustainable business and creates something of value in their own lives as well as the lives of their clients.
I think the critical role, or your role, is to transform that passion not into money, passion into value, and then money comes as a consequence. That jump into not just passion, but really channel that passion into value. And I mean people that value what they are receiving, so they can put their money on it. So. And you mentioned 20 years doing this, and maybe before that you already have doing some unconsciously things related to coaching or coaching yourself when you were a kid, maybe. So in those 20 years, what's the strangest or funniest incident you can share with us that you have experienced while working within your coaching business or within the coaching industry? Can you recall something strange, funny, weird that you can share?
I mean, there's lots of instances over the years being on site to support an athlete specifically. So I specialized when I was working primarily with athletes or singularly with athletes. I specialized in ultra distance events, and so long running events, long cycling events, and so. Oftentimes what I would do is I would be on site to support an individual that I was working with in these long events. These things might take days at a time, right? Yeah. And so you can imagine, these things they go on for multiple days or, at least 24 to 36 hours. Nobody's sleeping. And it's the middle of the night. Oftentimes you're in the mountains, you're in far-flung locations. I've been, in other parts of the world, and it's not like you're running around a park in a city, right? They tend to be these places that are logistical nightmares. And so I mean there's been any number of it's 4:00 in the morning, no one slept for 2 days, and athletes are coming in and they're running around the mountains or riding bikes in the mountains, and people hallucinating and, all kinds of things. So, not maybe one particular instance, but certainly lots of scenarios that have put me now, that I'm reflecting. I'm like, yeah, it's a pretty strange environment. And when you're in it, it seems very normal, when you're in that space. And I competed in a lot of those types of events. And when you're in that world, it's perfectly normal. No one, second guesses that you would go run for a week long or go, whatever the thing is. And of course, to most of the world, that's ludicrous. Why would you do that? So yeah, no, it is interesting. You do get really, your perception of reality becomes very skewed oftentimes when you're in that space, and what is hard or challenging or what might be normal. So yeah, lots of times and far-flung locations in the middle of the night, trying to support an athlete, or if I was on the athlete side, being supported. And
there's no normal. But talking about normal, you have to expect anything. Yeah. And I know you spoke about how you started the business, how you see the industry, what are the challenges in the industry right now. So what can you tell us about the coming trends? What do you see as the coming trends within this coaching industry, and how are you staying on top of that?
Yeah, it's something I think a lot about, as I'm sure many people do who are committed to solving very real challenges in this space. And it's just like with any industry, it's rapidly evolving. And we've seen that at several iterations in this space, whether through technology or through equipment or through different lenses. But I think there's a few things that are up and coming. I'll talk about the next the 5 years. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention AI. It's obviously at the top of everyone's mind, but I think it'll play a very specific role in the coaching space. I think there's a lot of fear around the role of AI in that space and whether or not it will take coaches' jobs or replace coaches. And I'm of the opinion that that's not the case, at least not at the current iteration of where AI is at right now. And I think it actually creates a massive opportunity, because what coaches actually are selling is relationships. And what AI can never provide, at least again in its current iteration, is a relationship. It can't understand the nuances of a person's life or their relationship with their family or their athletic identity or the mental challenges that come with navigating all of the aspects of the human condition, and our physical pursuits are part of that. So I actually see it as a massive opportunity and a very clear differentiator, and that's something that I work with coaches to do, and then layering in AI when it makes sense. There's lots of tools and ways that we can think about AI in terms of scale, and how do we scale our time so that we can get away from the time for money exchange, and that's another big piece of the equation that I help coaches solve. Is I'm going to give you time and you're going to give me money. Well, let's expand on that. Let's talk about different ways to really think about that value proposition. So that's number one, AI. I think the other one is a more holistic approach to that client experience. We might call that, holistic wellness. And when I think about that, or to put a finer point on it, what we're seeing is a real shift in client expectations. People recognize that there is more to their health and their wellness than just the physical pursuits. And so I think one of the opportunities for coaches in the industry is to think critically about how they support the entire individual, right? Do we talk about sleep? Do we talk about stress? Are we breath work, nutrition? And the list goes on, right? Anything outside of the prescriptive, like I said earlier, aspect of what you're providing. And I think that what I'm seeing is that is more and more of an expectation and a non-negotiable on the client side, right? They want those discussions. They want, whether that's a community, a group, a live chat, very real resources. They want somebody to say, let's take all this into consideration, right? Let's think about the whole person. And then I think, just to kind of piggyback on it's tangential to AI, but technology in general. I think this is one of the client expectation pieces that is rapidly evolving. And I think coaches need to think very critically about how they're integrating technology in a real way into the client experience. so that their services are fully integrated into those individuals' lives. And I think there still is a bit of a disconnect, third-party tools and things that sit in between the client and the coach. So there's an opportunity there. To the second part of your question, how am I solving that? One of the things that I do, I've always been really interested in how to think about or how to include technology in the coaching space. So there's a software component to what I do. So I have a software company that we created a cloud-based platform specifically for coaches. And so what we're able to do is help that coach leverage technology at a much easier, kind of lower barrier to entry, so that we can provide things like white label application solutions and custom platforms and custom services to connect the client with the athlete or the client with the coach. And so again, let's lower that barrier to entry. Instead of a $50,000 price tag to bring an application to market, and that's piggybacked off of a third-party solution that doesn't have any of the coach's branding in there. I just wanted to solve that problem. It didn't exist, so I built it. And so being able to, again, just give coaches access to tools and then different ways of thinking about how to leverage these things to connect them with their clients and then build a business that's scalable. And so I think about it, at every opportunity where a coach, an entrepreneur in this space could, get tripped up, right? Oh, I want to do this, but I don't know where to find the resources. I don't have enough money. I don't know who to talk to. Whatever that roadblock is, that speed bump, that thing that could disrupt their growth, I've tried to think about every point of that I experienced and build a solution for it so that those people can, continue to go up and out. So, it's three things that are kind of top of mind for me right now. There's a lot of, it's a very, it's a rapidly evolving space. It always has been, which I think makes it really interesting. But then again, my task for myself is, it's one thing to think about it. I actually want to take some action in trying to solve that. And so, that's where I spend a lot of my time, is like, okay, how do I solve these things for these individuals? So that they're a non-issue, right? So that they don't stop people.
Yeah, well, that's very clear. There are the trends you have set up. What is your focus? What is your uniqueness? So, what is talking about the future? Your future as a person, as a company. What is the next growth area for you personally and for your business? Having said all what you've said now.
I have big goals. We'll see. I mean, there's a lot. I am someone that I love to work, and I don't mean that in a braggadocious way or to say that that's the only approach, but I truly love to be engaged. I like solving these problems, and so for me, when I think about what's next, I'm thinking about I have a long runway. I'm still pretty young. And I'm like, okay, what can I accomplish in the next 40 or 50 years? What can that look like? Because I'm not someone who thinks about, I have a couple more years and then I'm going to retire. I have this makes me feel alive. I love to work and to be engaged. And so to your question, the technology piece is something I'm very focused on. I think I want to be a very real part of that solution in the next 3, 5 to 10 years. I think we're going to see a tremendous amount of growth in that space. And so I'm very focused on what that actually looks like for me. And again, the unique and specific application of how can I take that technology and make it approachable to individuals so that they can go make an impact in the world. So they can connect with more clients. They can provide a service. They can scale their time. So very focused on that. The wellness piece as well. I mean, I think that there's so many supporting activities that revolve around the space, whether that's, supplements, whether that's clothing brands, whether that's community, right? We're seeing, this massive uptick in interest in contrast therapy, sauna, cold plunge, wellness facilities. And so I'm not saying that I have that on the docket, but I'm very, very interested in exploring what that could look like, in alignment with my mission and vision. And I think certainly I'm very interested in what it would look like to engage in different communities and to build supportive networks outside of just the areas that I'm focused on now. So I think there's tremendous opportunity, and I can't wait to see what comes.
Yeah, I think it's an amazing industry, and more people are looking for being healthy, not only physically but mentally. So what is the best way for people to contact you if they'd like to work with you or discuss referral partners?
Yeah, always available via email. You can reach me at taylor@thomasendurancecoaching.com. I'm on my email all the time, as most people are. I'm also active on Instagram. It's at taylor.j.thomas. Lots of content on there about the trends that we've talked about: health and wellness, coaching, leadership, entrepreneurship. I have a few very specific lanes, and I try to stick to them. So if you're active on that platform, you can reach me there as well through a DM. Again, that's taylor.j.thomas and taylor@thomasendurancecoaching.com for email. So those are probably the two best platforms. And more than happy to connect with anyone, feedback, questions. Again, I'm here to be a resource and be a support mechanism. So I'm available.
Yeah, well, thank you. I think that was terrific. So I truly enjoyed our conversation. So thank you so much, Taylor, for being a guest on the podcast.
Thank you very much, Robert. This was a pleasure.
Thank you for joining me on Big Life Weekly series. I hope today's episode gave you the insight, inspiration, and tools you need to move closer to the life you're meant to live. Remember, true success isn't just about what you achieve. It's about how you feel while you're achieving it. If you found value in our conversation, please subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with others who are ready to embrace their big life. Until next time, stay focused, keep growing, enjoy life, and break free.